So far, we've used a couple different tools that required using a brush to retouch with. And we did that with our stamp tool and our first two healing brush tools. This next tool is not being applied with a brush. This is our patch tool, and in order to retouch with it, we need to make a selection, and then we drag that selection to an area to sample from to retouch with. So I'm going to show you how to use this patch tool in this lesson. So let's go over some of the options first. So up here, you're going to see all these little different squares, and these are basically options for allowing you to either add to the selection, subtract from the selection, or to intersect with the selection to fine-tune that selection. We also have a normal and a content aware option, and if you have normal selected, the options are different versus content aware. So source and destination will do the opposite of each other. Source will work normally. In other words, you'll make your selection and then you'll drag it to an area that you want to copy from. Destination will in turn take that selection and copy it to an area that you want, but it's also going to try and blend it in a little bit, and you can use the transparent option here to blend it in a little bit more. So I'm going to show you how to use each one of these different options. We also have a pattern option if we want to apply a pattern to our selection. And right now it's not turned on because we don't have a selection. And then we also have our diffusion option, which we talked about in the last lesson. So if we select content aware, which is the one that I use the majority of the time, this will act more like the spot healing brush tool in that it's going to work more intelligently, and Photoshop's going to magically decide which options and which textures and colors are best in order to blend in the retouching. And then structure will give you options for determining how intense those particular textures and colors are being applied to do the retouching. So you can increase it or decrease it for a more intense type of retouching depending on what you're trying to achieve and whether or not it's actually giving you the results that you want. And then you have the option to adjust how much the source of the selection is being applied in regards to the color. And this gives you an option for modifying those options. So again, this is just tweaking your patch tool in order to give you the results that you want. So let's go ahead and create a new layer so we can work non-destructively. And I'll go ahead and show you how to use this tool. So let's say the parent of this young man here was not happy that he wore a specific t-shirt, and let's say it was very offensive and she wants it removed. Well, we could use our stamp tool in conjunction with our healing brush tools to remove all this information right here. But it's going to take a long time to go in and stamp out and heal all these different areas. So the patch tool is a much better tool for the job because it allows you to patch or fix a larger area much faster. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to stay in the content aware mode for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a selection around this part of the emblem. And once I reconnect where I started, you get these little dancing ants. And then if we take a look at the icon now, we have an arrow and then the little patch icon. If I place my tool inside of the selection, we get another arrow that's pointing to the right. So that lets you know that now you want to move this selection to another area that you want to sample and use as the base for retouching that area. So I'm going to click inside and then drag it to another part of the t-shirt, and we can see that information is being copied to that area inside of the overlay right here. So you want to make sure you align it up with another part of the t-shirt that matches the threads and the color and the texture for that particular image. Because if I come over here to the lighter area, that's not going to blend in as well because it's much brighter over here versus what's right below it. So I'm going to release my mouse button right here, and then it's going to magically blend in this part of the shirt and cover up this area of the shirt. So if we turn this layer off, we can see that it magically removed that part of the emblem, and it did a pretty good job. We may need to go in and retouch up some of the edges sometimes, and we can do that with our other healing brush tools. But for now, I think you get the idea of how this works, and we're not going to spend a lot of time making this perfect. I just want to show you how to use the tool. All right, so let's go ahead and make another selection around West 49. And let's go ahead and move it to a location to copy from. And again, you want to make sure that the folds and the lines line up so that it blends in much better. Once I release, it then goes ahead and blends it in. So I can see an outline right here that I need to tweak with additional healing brush tools. But again, it removed the majority of it fairly well. I'm going to go ahead and undo that with Command or Control and the letter Z. And that only takes me back one step, so I need to go to my history panel to go back to a prior point in time. So I just want to bring it back to the way it was before. And let's go ahead and adjust structure to 7 and color to 10 and see if that gives us better results. So again, just outline it. And let's go ahead and move this into place. And it didn't really do much of a better job. It actually did worse. So in this case, you may need to make adjustments to the structure to go lower versus higher. And let's bring color back down again. So again, it didn't do a really good job. I think the default settings of 3 worked a lot better. So again, it's just a matter of going in and fine-tuning and tweaking the options up here in order to get best results, or just switch to another tool to blend in the edges if needed. All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn this layer off and create a new layer, and I'm going to show you the limitations of this particular tool. Now, it is nice that it can fix a large area, but sometimes too much is too much. So I'm going to select the entire thing, and let's say we just want to get rid of this whole thing at once. Well, if I click and I drag this down here because I want to sample this area, we can notice that the selection is getting smaller and smaller because I'm getting closer to the edge of the image and it's not allowing me to sample from that area. If I try this area over here, it does the same thing. Well, let's go ahead and try over here. Well, this isn't going to work either because it's much brighter than this side of the image. So it does have limitations in that you can't always select the entire thing. You have to do it in pieces in order to get best results. All right, let's zoom back in here. And let me show you something else. I'm going to go ahead and select this as well. But let's say I was in too big of a hurry and I didn't select everything. Well, we can come up here and select one of these other options to either add to it or to remove from the selection. Or I can use my keyboard shortcuts. The Shift key will give me the option to add to it. And we can see that there's a little plus icon next to the patch tool now. If I select my Alt or Option key, then it's going to remove from the selection. So maybe I want to get in a little tighter here and remove. With my Shift key, I can go ahead and select around it to add more. The last option is called Intersect. So if I hold down both my Shift and Alt or Option key, the icon adds a little X, and that means if we make a new selection that intersects with other parts of the selection, it's going to reduce that selection to the area that I draw out for that selection. So it's intersecting with other parts that have been selected. I really don't use that particular option that much. I tend to use the Shift or the Alt or Option key to add or remove as needed. Now if we take a look at normal, let's create a new layer again. This one is going to allow us to basically work the same way as before, but we cannot work non-destructively. So even though we try to move the selection to sample an area from, it's not going to let us do that because this particular layer has no pixels in it. So the only way to work with normal is to work destructively. And as you know, that's not what I recommend. Now, if you do want to do this on the background layer and you're wondering what destination is, well, that's basically going to do the opposite, and it's going to take that selection and copy it to wherever you place it, and then it's going to blend it in. It blended in the edge of it a little bit right here, and then you can use transparent as well to help blend it in even more. So that gives you another option for maybe duplicating something on the image and then blending it in with the new pixels where you place it. And then if you choose Use Pattern, it's going to fill in the pattern that you select into the selection. I never ever use normal, so I typically just leave it on Content Aware, and then I'll go ahead and use the patch tool that way. All right, so those are the basics of how to use the patch tool for removing larger areas of your image that need to be retouched. In the next lesson, we're going to go over another retouching tool, which is the Content Aware Move tool. So if you want, go ahead and practice with this particular tool first, and I'll see you in the next lesson.